Hey guys, my name is Nick and welcome to today's video. The 3D print of this Mechwalker I found on my mini factory and which I think fits great in the 40k world, I've added a few small battle tracks. The primer consists of a grey above and a black below. I saw this once at Squidmar Miniatures, I'll link his channel in the description. I've chosen a similar blue as the ultramarines and a few red highlights. The top of the laser cannons I then primed with silver and then painted a heat gradient with contrast paints from Army Painter. Let's move on to the Tyranids, or rather the small Hormagants who will try to kill the Mechwalker today. Let's see if they succeed. Painting Hormagants is really easy. After priming, I just paint the skin with palette bone contrast paint. Some black for the chitin plates on the back, a few highlights on the skin, and the typical stripes on the bottom edges of the chitin plates. One of the Hormagants I've removed the abdomen. Sounds hard, right? But why I intend with him you will see later. So stay tuned, and if you're already there, let me like a thumb up there if you like it. For the laser cannons I've thought of something special. My first attempt to make laser beams out of epoxy resin. For this I glue a few straws with hot glue on some wood and mix way too much epoxy. And I mean really way too much. Good that I can use that for another project. The red mixture I now carefully fill with a syringe in the glued straws and let it harden overnight.
12 hours later.
Okay, not the best SpongeBob imitation. Let's better remove the straws and see what comes out. I added a few drops of pigment after filling, but that didn't work as well as I thought. Nevertheless, I am very happy with the result. First of all, I shortened the beams, which are a 2-bit long. Now I bring the laser beams with my Dremel in shape, while I make sure that they later fit into the barrel of the gun. Because only laser beams made of epoxy were too boring for me, I had the idea to illuminate them. For this, I drilled small channels for the LED filament in the laser beam and also channels for the cables in the laser cannon itself. These are the 3V LED filaments. It took about 8 weeks for them to finally arrive. Now I solder the filaments to thin cables and thread them through the laser guns. Then the filament is glued with UV resin in the laser beam. I killed 2 filaments during this action because they're really sensitive and you have to be very careful not to break them. Finally, I align everything and glue the guns to the body. As a base, I take a cheap picture frame that I found at IKEA and glue the glass with some hot glue. With styrofoam I make a rough sketch and carve the rock, then torch something until everything is nice and smooth and fits into the base. Now it's time to mix the plaster. I mix it with water and apply quite thickly to the styrofoam. The whole thing now takes a while, so I want to use the time briefly for a shameless self-promotion. I know that you now hear in almost every video, but it's very important for me as a creator to get feedback, whether in the form of a like, comment or a sub. Because 97% of my viewers have not subscribed to the channel, and if you want to see such projects in the future, like to leave a sub, comment or a thumb there. So now but enough, let's go on. I love using tinfoil to texture rocks. To do this, simply press the crumbled aluminum foil into the still wet plaster and let it dry. Done. Cork is wonderful for building roads. I want to depict a destroyed road here. So I just rip out rough pieces, lay them out and glue them down. A few rubble piles may not be missing. In my world there's a lot of steel under the road, so to represent that I take some wire, cut it to size, drill a few holes and fix them. It should look really nice, broken and post-apocalyptic. With the remaining straws I still represent a few sewage pipes and old cables that I still had flying around represent, who would have thought it's old cables. From the sewage pipe still dripped the mud. To represent that, I take some UV resin in a syringe and drip it in, with a lamp that hardens immediately. The advantage so you can quickly create drops. From a bottle cap I then cut a large hole, from which I make a large sewer. With a few bent wires the whole thing should look even more broken. Let's see how it works when it's painted. Is everything dry, I prime everything black. With black and white I paint wet and wet the asphalt, which creates beautiful color gradients in the grey area. You can also add some brown. To make it even clearer that it's a road, I take some tape and put a few road markings with yellow paint. I take very little paint so that nothing runs under the tape. Pull off, the best moment always. I think that's good enough markings. Let's now paint the soil under the road. For this I just take some brown that I mix with white paint. All metal parts now get a silver paint. We'll let them weather nicely in a moment. Time to take care of the base. I seal all the corners with silicone first, because we're about to bring some resin into play. I also glue the road with silicone and seal the front edge so that no resin can run underneath and etch the styrofoam. With rust wash from Vallejo I start to wash all metal parts. And here and there a little rust pigment and the whole thing looks really old. From the large sewer pipe still splashed the mud out, so I cut out a piece of plastic from a cup. Heat it briefly with a lighter and it's easy to bend. Still briefly glued and that's it. Now I definitely mix the right amount of resin, with a few drops of goblin green colored and ready to pour. I was a little nervous whether I have sealed everything cleanly with silicone, but what can I say, it worked great. Before I applied a snow or spray effect I used water texture from Vallejo, but they did not have the desired effect, which is why I skipped the step. I take the time around the emerging mud to draw small spray circles. Now everything comes together. Before I glued the Mechwalker, I drilled a hole for the cables. Now our Tyranid Swarm comes back into play. With a transparent wire I want to make it look like the Hormagant jumps out on the Mechwalker. The rest of the swarm is distributed around him. Also from the drain one crawls out, so I have previously halved this. We are now pretty much at the end. I hope you liked the video and let me, like as already mentioned, a like there and check out my other dioramas. I would be really happy, so thank you. And now here's the final result.